Yeah, I saw that tweet. Yeah, no, I did. They did a great job of recruiting my family and I. And I guess he thought that if he was able to get close with Ninny, Ninny's what we call her. She's the sweetest thing ever. If he was able to get close with her, then they'd have a better chance. So yeah, I mean they texted and called all the time. I actually had to tell her a couple times, like, Ninny, you gotta chill out. Yeah, you don't know how this stuff works. Right? You gotta see the bigger. You gotta know what they're trying to do here. Yeah, but yeah, they did definitely get close during recruiting.
And we're back, TigerNet Podcast. I'm your host, Matt, and I'm here with David Hood. And David, we've lamented as much as we can about the South Carolina loss. Time to face, as Dabo Swinney says, the real Carolina, North Carolina, up in Charlotte. ACC championship, first time the Tigers have been since 2020. And hey, always a fun time in Charlotte.
I love that trip. Number one, it's a great stadium to go to. It's a great stadium to cover a game in. They make it really easy for us. The ACC makes it easy. And then, you know what? There's been several times Clemson's been, let's just say a lot recently. And you go, man, I just don't know how this other team's going to be able to compete. And it does. It winds up being a blowout. I don't see a blowout this time. In fact, North Carolina, not only very capable, right now, if I had to pick, I'd say they have a great shot at beating Clemson and walking out with an ACC title because of Clemson's offensive issues. So, this is going to be a fun weekend.
Before we get digging into the game, I do have to give you my Charlotte story. So 2015 was my first senior year at Clemson. My buddies and I, we camped out for the ACC championship tickets, got them, went up to Charlotte. We went and put a tape for a table at Wild Wing there at the epicenter, pretty close to the stadium. We waited a few hours and never heard. They said they were going to text us. It's been about 8 seasons since that happened, and we've never gotten that text. So, hey, maybe we'll finally get a table this week.
Yeah, you know what? If Clemson fans stay away in droves, you might be able to get a table just about anywhere. Some really good places up there. I do like to go to Epicenter. They've got what's the name of the cookie place? Insomnia Cookies. That's really good. There's some different places up there that's good to eat. Mark Packer. Everybody knows Mark Packer from Sirius XM and Southern Fried Football and all of that. He turned me on to a really good Italian place up there. And I'm looking forward to going up there. I think chance to just kind of exhale a little bit and breathe and just enjoy the city. Of course, last time I was there was the ACC football kickoff, and there was a pretty big soccer game going on between the locals and an English Premier League team. So this time, not really a whole lot other else going on except maybe the Christmas lights out at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So shouldn't be too crowded up there.
And that's one thing too. I actually used to live in the Metro Charlotte area. Great atmosphere for decorating for Christmas lights around this time of year. So a lot to see. Before we get going, we'll talk. One of our sponsors is Prize Picks. Remember, folks, on that first initial deposit, if you use the code Tigers100, you will get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. And, David, there's less football to talk about, but this is a pretty good week to get into Prize Picks because there's World Cup stuff. There's basketball. There's all kinds of sports going on. It's going to be a pretty big sports weekend. Who are some Clemson guys that maybe we can look into if we're wanting to make picks?
Well, you know what? So somebody posted a tweet back when Will Shipley committed to Clemson a couple of years ago. Drake Maye, the North Carolina quarterback, congratulated him and said, hey, see you in the ACC championship game. They played against each other. They're friends, and that's now come to fruition. You're going to have Drake Maye, Will Shipley. I think Will Shipley's a guy that, we say that every week you can watch out for. But here's kind of the deal. North Carolina's pass defense is not very good. In fact, I know I looked it up yesterday. I'm wanting to say lower than 100. How about that? So they're not very good in pass defenses. In fact, they're 118th. So maybe this is the week that Clemson's passing game gets going and you see a receiver break out. How about Antonio Williams, who had the fumble on the punt return? I think he's going to have a little something to prove this week. That's another guy that I'd watch. And then Clemson's tight ends, once again, shut out for the most part. Saturday. 1 reception for 3 yards. That was Jake Brenningstool. It's criminal when Davis Allen doesn't get a chance to touch the football. I know that there was a couple passes that came his way. They were woefully off target. One was intercepted. You got to get those guys involved. And maybe Davis Allen's another one to watch this week.
I think Clemson's got to get back to getting the tight ends into it. That was in the early part of the season when we started to see some offensive success. That was part of it. It was Brenningstool and Allen were the 2 guys. And so I absolutely think for Clemson to win, this is going to be a big thing. A story, interesting to bring up Will Shipley and his recruitment. Earlier this week, an interesting story came out that Mac Brown has got pretty close with Will Shipley's grandmother.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because when you're recruiting and you try to do just anything that you possibly can, to gain an advantage, but you also develop relationships. And it's interesting that Mac and Will Shipley's grandmother built a relationship, and that's funny. I think that happens all the time with coaches. You meet grandma and you meet grandpa, and you meet aunts and you meet uncles and you meet coaches, and those relationships last. And maybe grandma wanted him to go to North Carolina, but he wanted to go to Clemson. I've seen it before where parents are up on a stage and a kid picks a school and they're like not happy because they have a relationship with a coach maybe somewhere else. Anyway, so a lot of storylines, especially with Will Shipley being from that North Carolina area.
Absolutely. Should be a fun kind of a reunion for him. What do we need to watch out for with the Tar Heels? Because that's an offense that has been pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think that this is without a doubt the best quarterback Clemson has faced this year. Drake Maye was definitely in the Heisman conversation, and I'm still pondering giving him a vote. Wouldn't be a first place vote. Still pondering a vote for Drake Maye. Still got some guys. Maybe we can do a podcast on this next week. Taking a look at the Heisman race and handicapping things. I've got until next Monday to make a vote, but he was there, and for good reason. I mean, when you take a look at what he has done as a redshirt freshman this year, I remember watching him in Clemson's camp, although 3 years ago, I guess, and thinking, hey, this kid, he has the length. Dad played football, brother played basketball, another brother on the basketball team, so he's got that height. And he's just really good. But you look at it and you go, well, who's leading the ACC in passing? And, okay, well, who's got the most completions? Oh, well, that's Drake Maye. He also has the most attempts. Well, who's leading the ACC in completion percentage? Well, that's Drake Maye. Who's leading the ACC in yards per attempt? Well, he's at 8.7. Sam Hartman's at 8.7, and Jordan Travis is at 8.9, and nobody's really close beyond that. Who's leading the ACC in touchdown throws? Well, Sam Hartman's got 35. Drake Maye's got 35. The difference is Sam Hartman has 11 interceptions, some of those just absolutely awful, and Drake Maye has 5, and right at 320 yards a game. He is accurate. And then, oh, by the way, somebody told me this week, they were like, well, at least he is a pocket passer, and you don't have to worry about him getting out of the pocket all that much. And I said, do you want to think about that again? And they kind of looked at me and I said, guess who's 11th in the ACC in rushing? Oh, that kid by the name of Drake Maye. He's actually run for more yards than some people that we think of as running quarterbacks. He's sitting right there with 629 yards and 6 touchdowns this year. Pretty good, right? He's just a few yards behind Justice Ellison, who's the starting running back at Wake Forest. So, he's a guy that gets out of the pocket. They have designed runs for him. They have that RPO stuff that he can kind of get outside. But I'm telling you what, when he is most dangerous is when they're sending those wide receivers, those frisbee catching dogs down the field, and you don't get him in the pocket and he gets out, and all of a sudden, man, he can chew up with those big long strides. He can chew up 23 yards in a heartbeat, and that's where they have been killing teams this year.
And that's been an issue with Clemson of letting quarterbacks get out of the pocket and pick up yards on plays. I mean, Spencer Rattler got a touchdown off of it Saturday. So absolutely something to keep an eye on this week.
Yeah, and I don't know who they'll stick on him. Will they stick Trotter as a spy on him? Will they stick Barrett Carter, who's probably the fastest of the three linebackers? Will it be the Sam Nickel guy? Will it be Trenton Simpson? I don't know. Somebody has got to keep an eye on him. And that hurts the defense even more because now you're taking a guy out of coverage. And, I don't know, maybe Wes Goodwin will go, hey, we're going to try and contain him with the front four or whatever linebackers are, staying up in coverage or are blitzing. But if you let him get out, man, it's game over. He's not afraid to lower shoulder and take a hit. And, he's not afraid to get out of bounds, not afraid to slide. He does it all, man. The kid has great poise. And I go back to saying, hey, I saw him in camp and, thinking, man, somebody's going to get a pretty good one. I think this kid's undervalued. And Clemson, they offered him, but there was never really a chance. Again, he's a North Carolina kid. Dad went there. Brother, basketball star there, Luke Maye. He grew up going to North Carolina Tar Heel games. He lives in Charlotte. He was a North Carolina guy. I mean, it would have taken, maybe somebody waving $15 million in front of him to get him to go elsewhere. And I don't even know if that would have worked.
And that one thing I think people sometimes forget is college football. You do have those kids that it doesn't matter what the other options are. They're going to one school. They've known where they've wanted to go since they could walk. And that's what makes college football fun, when you have guys that are committed. Not to say that the guys who, didn't know much about the program before they got to the school are not committed, but it's fun when you've got a guy. I mean, the Bo Nix story of, I know now he's at Oregon, but when he was at Auburn, talking about how he grew up, every week watching the Auburn game, loving Auburn. Like, you like to see those guys have success.
You do. And Clemson got a commitment from, a kicker who's top 6 in the nation this week, Nolan Hauser. Another kid that we've seen in camp, but sister's on the women's soccer team at Clemson. Dad played baseball at Clemson. Mom, is a Hall of Fame type athlete at Clemson. He wound up, coming to games here growing up. This is his dream school. I love seeing stuff like that. And it's really funny because now we talk to kids who are not South Carolina kids who've kind of grown up everywhere, and they go, oh, yeah, well, my favorite team growing up was Clemson. Why? I turn on the TV and I saw him in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, or I saw him in a national championship game or a college football playoff. And I love the helmets, or I love the orange, or I love Dabo. And, now you're starting to see people from outside the state who love Clemson. And, that just kind of pays dividends for you.
Yeah, and that's something that I've noticed. I think, what people don't realize, when you get up to states like, New York, Massachusetts, where college football isn't the big thing locally, a lot of times kids growing up just pick who they see on TV. I had a friend grew up in, Queens, New York, and he was a Texas fan of all things. Why? Because he grew up watching Vince Young. I mean, I asked him, I was like, well, why don't you like Syracuse? Why don't you like Logan? He's like, I don't want to watch that team. I want to watch Texas. And so, that's kind of how it is. It's similar to how we see in America. We've, everybody seems to have adopted some random EPL team. And I think Clemson's getting to that point, or is that the point? I mean, 2 national titles where you have a lot of kids who may not have the connection, may not be from South Carolina, but that's who they watched on Saturday.
It is. And Kate Klubnik grew up kind of, and I say grew up, we think about going back 15 years or whatever. But he really took notice of Clemson and told his mom years ago, hey, I'm going to play college football for Clemson. And very, very interesting stuff to see these kids from all over the country and see it kind of pay dividends. And then, I like to travel a lot, and wherever we go, people are always talking about Clemson and, noticing how the brand has changed. And then, oh, by the way, the CAB, or the Clemson Athletic Branding Institute, I was in the football facility yesterday, and that thing is almost done. That's a lot of the NIL branding stuff, and that's going to pay dividends too, and just kind of help with, getting that Paul out there even further.
Absolutely. Well, going back to the game, what does Clemson, especially on defense, but both ways, we'll talk. What does Clemson look like health wise? What kind of injuries are we dealing with this week?
I think so. First of all, Bo Collins is out. He's just going to have surgery and get that shoulder repaired. And, I don't even know what that means for the spring. I think otherwise, pretty good offensively. That's the good news. Defensively, still battling some stuff. I think Jalen Phillips, he came back in and he finished the game. I'm not sure, and he'll probably try and go this week, but he's going to have to be watched. Tyler Venable still kind of trying to watch what's going on there. I think the secondary, RJ Mickens, of course, is out because of that absolutely brutal targeting call where the running back lowers his helmet and they hit. And stupidest rule in college football. Yes, protect the players, but there's got to be some common sense there. So he's gonna, he's gonna have to miss the first half. Sorry, I got distracted there for a second. He's gonna have to miss the first half. So Clemson's gonna be down a little bit in the secondary, and that's probably not the greatest thing that you want when facing Drake Maye. And oh, by the way, how about Josh Downs? That's a pretty good player too, right? So it's just gonna, that's all I've heard so far, and I hope nobody else goes out as the week goes on.
One guy that's really grown up this year after having just a debacle against Wake Forest has been Nate Wiggins. This is about to be a big week for him with Josh Downs. I think he could be a difference maker if he continues to play well.
Yeah, that dude is just an absolute difference maker. And and I think early in the year, he was the guy, right? Like he was really the one threat that they had. And for people who are like, oh, how good is he? Well, he leads the ACC, 83 receptions. Now, here's kind of the deal for me. In the past, if you saw maybe I don't know, Mike Williams. If Mike Williams had 83 receptions or whatever, you're talking about 1,200 yards. A couple of years ago, or maybe 2018. Remember Justin Ross had 46 receptions for 1,000 yards. So when you talk about guys who are getting up into that 80 mark, remember Steve Ishmael for Syracuse had some ridiculous number, 1,347 yards back maybe about 2017. Chatarius Atwell, he was really good for Louisville. 70 receptions, 1,276 yards all that time ago. So when you talk about these guys, you think about the big yards. Well, so Josh Downs has 83 receptions, leads the ACC, but only 929 yards. So he's right at 11.19 yards a catch, I think is what I'm looking at here. And that's just not a lot. And he was really the guy earlier. You think maybe averaging 17, 16, 18 yards a catch or whatever, but he's still very dangerous. He's still got 11 touchdowns, but now they've got a couple of other guys who are right there with him, who are really good. They've got Bryson Nesbitt, who's the tight end. He's a dude. You're going to have to watch him. They've got, I think, Juju or JJ Jones, who there was a Juju last week, but JJ Jones, who is really good wide receiver. One other guy, maybe Morales, who's another tight end who's really good. So they've got a couple guys. Antoine Green, that's the other guy I'm looking for. They got some guys that can go out and go get the football, and you're just going to have to cover the entire field with them.
What should we expect from UNC defensively? I know earlier we talked their pass defense is not that good. What about run defense?
Well, yeah. So they have gotten better, I guess, as the year has gone on. That's one thing that we were talking about. I think they're only giving up like 10 points per game in the second half of ACC games. So they've gotten better as the year has gone on. Still probably not great passing defense, man. They are dead last in the conference in pass defense. And, they've given up a whopping 24 touchdown passes, and teams are averaging 273 yards a game on them. So the pass defense, not good, but for Clemson, you don't know, are they going to be able to take advantage of that? Because right now they just can't run, pass the football. Well, the good news is North Carolina's not very good against the run either. They're giving up 170 yards a game on the ground. So, good defensive linemen, athletic linebackers, and it's probably the type of defense that you look at 4 years ago, and man, Clemson's going to eat this up. Now with an offense that's struggling a little bit, now you just don't know what you're going to get. So I think North Carolina's good, getting better at times, still not great, not really all that great at forcing turnovers or whatever. But definitely dangerous enough to kind of thwart this Clemson offense.
I think if I'm Dabo and I'm Brandon Streeter this week, I'd have to consider getting on a conference call with Chase Bryce, because he had 6 touchdowns in his opening game against North Carolina, a 63-61 loss for App State. I mean, it would be interesting to kind of hear what he sees from that offense, that defense. I know it was, earlier in the season, but absolutely a defense that can be exposed.
It is. And, they were just running guys deep, and that secondary couldn't tackle, and they couldn't cover. And, if you've got some really great wide receivers, man, that's the way to attack them. And here you go. You know what? Here's an interesting stat for it. Here's something you're going to really get a kick out of. Do you know who leads the nation in big time throws category, which means, into coverage, but still getting big plays out of it? Do you know who Pro Football Focus says is the best quarterback in the country in that category?
I don't know.
It's Drake Maye. Do you know who's second in that category? His name is Chase Bryce. So it's interesting that you mentioned those two together. They're both really good at throwing the ball down the field. That was such a fun game to watch. And again, you say, well, Clemson can attack them here or attack them there. It's just not what Clemson has been able to do this year, or what they've been able to do well. So I think that's why this game is so intriguing to me, is that North Carolina is such a bad matchup for the Tigers, because what Clemson has not done well is defend the pass. And North Carolina runs to keep people honest so they can throw the football all over the field. You go, uh-oh. And they've got a mobile quarterback who can make plays down the field. Not a great matchup. And then, as bad as North Carolina's offense or defense has been, Clemson's offense just hasn't been very good at times either. And they're just not throwing the football with authority, or they're not catching it, or, they go away from the run too much.
Is there any thought that Tyler Venables might make a comeback this week?
I haven't heard. I think that there was hope that he could come back, but you're dealing with his hamstring. It could be tricky. That could be one of those things where we see how he is Thursday and see how he's doing in practice.
Well, I mean, because that just was a guy that, with some of the safety struggles last week against South Carolina, definitely was a guy you wish you had, and I think could be a big difference maker if he can go against North Carolina again. Dealing with those hamstrings is tough. It's also going to be a cold game, and just might not be the best environment for him to get out and try it.
Yeah, and so as good as job as that stadium is, they also play an NFL schedule there. And it seems like every year when we get ready to go play the ACC championship, it seems like torrential rains come in, and it's not the warmest. And you have the NFL, and man, I think it was 3 years ago, I went out on the field and I noticed that they had merely painted the dirt. There was just dirt painted. And there's just not a lot of grass growing. So maybe the footing not supposed to be the best. And, I think there may actually be a threat of rain up there Saturday. So we'll have to see. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and not to forget, it's not even just the NFL anymore. They've got Charlotte FC, so another team that abuses that turf.
Yeah, that turf gets it. And they have, Garth Brooks concerts. And so, and I've had a lot of friends that have been up to concerts up there lately. So yeah, that turf, it gets used and abused, and now you're trying to play the ACC championship on top of it.
Looks like looks like there's a threat of rain during the day, but by kickoff should be about 57 degrees. So hopefully not too damp, but it looks like a pretty clear night, which will be good.
Yeah, there's been some pretty clear nights. There was so there's been some rainy nights up there too. I think against Pitt, it rained, and for Clemson, maybe you want the rain. Maybe you want to slow down Drake Maye and Josh Downs and some of those guys, and just turn it into a running contest and see if your defense can stop them. So many storylines heading into this one with Drake Maye and the Clemson offer, and the friendship with Shipley, and Dabo and Mac Brown are really good friends, and I think they think highly of each other. People probably don't know, but when Dabo took over at Clemson, he took his staff out to Texas when Mac Brown was out there, just to kind of get a feel for how Texas was doing things and trying to win. And I think Mac's defensive coordinator at that time was Will Muschamp. I think I'm right with that. So, a lot of similarities, correlations between these two. And then Mac became an analyst, and now he's back at North Carolina, and he kind of knows about the inside of the Clemson program. So just interesting to me, just a lot of storylines.
Absolutely. Well, one storyline that we haven't touched on yet. What do you think we see? Do we see Cade Klubnik get any action this week? It's been the question all year.
I'm so glad that you asked me that. I have a lot of friends who are conspiracy theorists, right? And I have one friend that it will remain nameless, who thinks that, for whatever reason, John F. Kennedy Jr. is still alive, and Princess Diana is his godmother, and she's still alive, and they're going to come back and run some deal with Michael Jackson and Tupac, and just crazy, right? Just crazy stuff. And so here's my conspiracy theory of the week. When we had the ACC football call with Dabo Sunday, and the question was asked of him, how are you going to handle the quarterbacks this week? Dabo immediately got a little bit chippy, and he said, oh, so are you asking me are you telling me the DJ is the reason we lost the game? And of course, that wasn't what was said at all. And the reporter said, no, I'm just asking, how are you going to handle the quarterbacks this week? And he went through, well, DJ didn't play safety, didn't do this. So what I'm going to tell you is DJ Uyunglele will start the game in Charlotte. And I thought, we'll start the game. And the way he kind of said that, I was like, So I played it for Nikki, and I said, here's a minute and 20 seconds of Dabo. See if anything you pick up anything. So she listens to it, and she turns it off. She goes, he says, we'll start the game. And she's like, that's a little odd phrase. And I said, it really is. And then he kind of doubled down on that in his press conference Tuesday. We're going to run him out there first. Brandon Streeter saying, hey, we're still talking about how maybe we could get Cade involved. So what does that mean? Does that mean that DJ has a very, very, very short leash? Does that mean that Cade Klubnik is going to get a package or two packages? I don't know, but it could be just designed to throw people off, to make North Carolina either just throw all the way in with DJ or maybe prepare for two quarterbacks. I don't know, but I think if I had to guess right now, they're probably going to try and figure out a way to change some things around offensively, and I think that means Cade might get involved somehow.
And I think that would be is kind of the way to go. You don't necessarily have to bench DJ, but I think there's nothing wrong with the idea of throwing Cade in for a few drives early and see what happens. So, absolutely.
Just see what happens. People say, hey, they don't have anything to lose. Well, they do. Again, Orange Bowl is a pretty big deal versus the Holiday Bowl, Cheez-It Bowl, Gator Bowl, right? It's a big deal. So there is still stuff to lose. But, I don't know that this offense can get any worse than 8 for 29 through the air last week. And again, that's not all on DJ. That's offensive line not doing their job. That's running backs not blocking at the right time. That's receivers running into each other, and that's 5 drops, all not on DJ. But again, there's got to be a spark somewhere.
And who knows, Cade may be that spark. Well, it should be a fun weekend. Definitely, it's a good week to get out to Charlotte early. Find a place in the epicenter and watch the World Cup. Watch all the championship games, and then you got the big one on the line, 8:00 at night. And should be a fun weekend. Should be a good weekend to kind of get some of this bad taste of the South Carolina loss out of our mouth.
I hope so. And if the ACC actually loved me, they would make this a 3:30 game. and not 8 o'clock, because that 8 o'clock means it's going to be an 8:24 kickoff, and it's going to be a 4-hour game, and I'm not going to get done with interviews till 2 a.m. And the ACC forgets that I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and that's going to be a long night and a long day.
A long night and a long day. It should be a raucous atmosphere. Hopefully Clemson fans do still show up, support this team. They have earned it.
You know, just really proud of what we've been able to accomplish, even though it hurt really, really bad on Saturday. And we just got to keep a perspective and understand that that we get another opportunity, and how can we show these guys this opportunity by bouncing back quickly, and heck yeah, holding them accountable for the mistakes, holding yourself accountable for mistakes, and learning from it. And then, hey, let's get ready, man, because we got to go play in a championship game.
This podcast is a production of Big Game College Football Network. For more information, please go to bgpodcastnetwork.com. For 24-hour streaming of all Big Game College Football Network podcasts, please go to biggamecfb.airtime.pro. All rights reserved.
Man, they've been asleep. What you talking about? Online.